Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to another edition of Think and Grow Rich Live. My name is Dr. Peter A. James, and I'm so excited to be here with you all on another Saturday morning as we dive on into a conversation around Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I have to be the first to say, if you have never picked up a copy of this infamous book, today needs to be your day because this text is so rich in guidance for not just how to become wealthy, not just how to become rich, but also how to live a rich life. And that's what I love the most about the book, not even so much the wealthy aspect of it, just how to really double down on those things that are important to you. So listen, today is going to be awesome. We have the gang, most of the gang back here today. I'm excited to dive on into that conversation. And then of course we have a special guest that I'll bring out a little bit later on. Can't wait to introduce her to you as we move on. But please, without further ado, I can't get started without bringing in the master wealth builder, Ann McNeil. Good morning to you. How are you doing early this morning?
Oh my goodness. Listen, if I were any better right about now, rat, yes, all of the above, I would be on the East Coast, but I'm doing awesome, awesome. All things considered, doing great. Excited to be here. Excited
Awesome.
to be here.
You are very brave coming to us this morning, early this morning from the West Coast. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and I hope you are doing well. Good morning to you, Louise. Good to see you today, my friend. How have you been?
My good friend Peter, how are you? I'm fantastic. Thank you. Here in Texas, enjoying the beautiful weather.
The beautiful
So,
heat of Texas, that is.
yes, always,
Actually,
always.
actually, Luis, I think you folks in Texas have been sharing the heat with a lot of people in the United States, other parts of the United States, specifically here in Chicago. So we have it very nice and warm these days, but we're not complaining because it could be snowing for sure.
Right.
You know, folks, today we're diving on into organized planning. And actually, this is probably the last week we're going to dive into organized planning. So thank you so much for allowing us to reflect on what organized planning looks like in your life. Louise, I'm going to come back to you really quickly as we talk about this topic, organized planning. What small ways do you implement organized planning in your life? Is it by your calendar? Is it a schedule? Even is it planning out bigger things in your life? What does that look like for Louise on a regular basis?
Well, one of the things that I've learned is to use technology on my advantage. I
Mm.
didn't used to use it was everything kind of by memory, right? But
Mhm.
you're, in my case, I've been growing in life, earning, getting more businesses and my sports career. So everything's, and then become a father and all that kind of stuff. So it gets more complicated. When I first started using my calendar, it was a life-changing thing because then I didn't have to rely on memory because sometimes we have great memory in but also the way our psyche works, right, our mind works, we prioritize. So whatever is important, we get into it. But what makes a difference in life is the details, is the little things.
Mm.
We do with 88 the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time we do automatic, it's habit, and only 20% of the things in our days are kind of like important. So yes, I would, a lot of things will uh, slide through the cracks in my life because of that. But then I every night I do what Bob Proctor used to say: go over the 5, 6 things that you're gonna do the next day, what is important, and then write them down, and you attack all that kind of things. And prioritize them. This is more important tomorrow. This is what I need to do, and then so on and so on.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Love to hear that. Love to hear how you at nighttime you do some reflection, but also some planning. So kudos to you.
absolutely.
I probably need to lean into that even more as we move forward. In the outset of chapter 6 of Organized Planning, Napoleon Hill says, "You have learned that everything worthwhile that an individual creates or acquires begins in the form of desire. We've spoken about desire so much on this show, and that the first step of desire's journey from the abstract to the concrete is into the workshop of the imagination. We've also spoken about imagination, where plans for desire's transitions are created and organized. So, in order for you to get started, you have to have that desire. Ann McNeil talks about it a lot. That imagination is very important, but it can't just stop with the desires and the imagination. It's got to migrate over into those plans, being able to be strategically planning, creating, and organizing. Ann McNeil, really quickly before we bring in our distinguished guest, planning, organizing, how regular is that for you, if you don't mind?
Oh, I love what Louis just said because the calendar is phenomenal. But what I find, and you hit the nail on the head, I have to go back to my desire. And every Sunday, because I'm in a mastermind group and we meet on Mondays, I go over the 10 areas of my life and what is important in those areas that I need to focus on for the upcoming week, especially family and health, in terms of making sure that I calendar those activities in addition to everything else, because otherwise I find I can get very busy and
Mm,
get it to the end of the week or even the end of the month and look back in reflection and say, oh my goodness, I forgot that I needed to call my brother. Oh
mm.
my goodness, I forgot that I needed to, you know, renew my license. All of those things that ordinarily I wouldn't think about if I didn't, I wrote a book called How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group. And in it, we list those 10 things, but we have a daily check off. I don't check it off every day, but it helps me with being better organized in all of those areas.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I'm excited to learn how all of us are continuing to have that organized planning in our life. But without further ado, I think it's time to bring out our distinguished guest. Shavon Reed-Agard is a transformational life coach, motivational speaker, and founder of Echo Love Enterprises, a personal and professional development company rooted in the belief that relationships are everything. With a background in mass communications, she brings decades of experience as a communications consultant, TV, radio personality, producer, and director. Her coaching, content, and courses help individuals and teams develop self-awareness, build confidence, and transform pain into purpose. She is a certified life and confidence coach, relationship workshop facilitator, and the creator of the Echo Love app and the discovery of you. She's a wife, she's a mother, and she's a resilient woman of faith. Siobhan channels her personal journey of loss and restoration to inspire healing, connection, and intentional growth. Hey, folks, without further ado, Siobhan, come on into our conversation. How are
Hi,
you?
everyone.
How are you doing this morning there, Siobhan?
I'm excited. I'm truly glad to be here. I just think this is a beautiful, lovely opportunity to chat with you all about organized planning.
Good stuff. And so we're going to dive in. Before we start learning about who you are, we want to piggyback on the conversation that I was just having with Anne and Louise. Organized planning in your life there, Siobhan. Give us a small snippet of what that has successfully looked like, if you could.
Sure. Well, I will certainly echo what both Luis and Ann shared about what they do on a day-to-day basis. I've learned that I have had to really maximize the use of my calendar where I'm setting alerts, that I am trying to be proactive. And there's another element that I've learned in the long scheme of things that's really helpful, and that is journaling. Now,
Mm.
I know everyone can't journal every single day, but when you think about organized, see, Luis held up his. But there's so much that you learn about yourself and your behaviors when you're journaling to help you understand where the gaps are in how you plan and how you organize. So those are two things, just maximizing my calendar efficiently and journaling, a big part of what I do.
Good stuff. We're gonna Thank you so much for sharing that, especially that journaling aspect. We're going to come back and learn a little bit more about you there, Shavon. I want to make sure that I acknowledge all of the individuals who are with us today, specifically on YouTube. I see Meta, Wilson, Lynn, Whitfield, Carla, Hill, Doretha. Good to see you, Doretha. Johnny Lloyd. Johnny Lloyd, good morning. Diane Kingflowers, Shannon Charlton. Let's see, Laura Jackson. Hopefully, I didn't miss anybody. Also, we have Angela here in the webinar. Hope you all are doing well. Hey, if you are able to dive on into the chat and let us know what organized planning looks like in your life, if you could. But let's do this really quickly. Let's get ready to go to our first break. And on this break, of course, we're going to give you an overview of these 13 principles. Louise, I'm going to pass it back over to you, my friend, to introduce this phenomenal video for our audience as we continue to dive on it in. Would you mind, sir?
I don't mind at all. It's a privilege, actually. This video brings so much knowledge. I strongly suggest you to get some pen, paper, and or at least uh, think, ponder on we're gonna get a little extract, very highlights of every single principle of Napoleon Hill's most famous book.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the Wild Wild West days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
As mentioned earlier, folks, if you have never had the honor of diving on into this phenomenal book, please pick up a copy as soon as you can. I truly believe that this will enrich your life on so many different levels. Shavon, I want to go back to you for sure. Again, thank you so much for being our guest this morning. Shavon, tell us a little bit about Shavon, if you don't mind, maybe some backgrounds. Introduce us to your audience, to the audience, maybe where you're from, where you reside, but also what you do too that impacts the world in a beautiful way.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, first off, I am from a town called Hot Springs, Arkansas, where I was born and raised, and I transitioned to the state of Florida in 1998. My last year in high school, I was like, hey, it's time to transition. And so I moved to Florida and I went to the University of Central Florida, where I got my degree in mass communications and started business while I was in college, a full service television and video production company with a co-owner, and did that business for a number of years. And I think a lot of people know what happened in 2008. And so in 2008, as the economy crashed, we ended up dissolving that business by the end of 2010. And that's when I started to begin doing more public speaking and started to doing more coaching. And then my company, Echo Love Enterprises, expanded into personal and professional development, all while still doing some communication consulting. Currently, we live in a city called Riverview, Florida, which is outside of Tampa Bay. And myself, my husband, I have two boys. I have a teenager who will be 16 this year, and I have a little 6-year-old. So my life juggles a lot.
Good stuff. I'm dying. I'm going to pass it over to Ann McNeil for our next question, but I'm dying to hear, especially in your busy life, I'm sure with family and even professional, what organized planning looks like for you. But we'll put a pin in that. Ann McNeil, I'm going to come back to you for our next question for our guest. Yeah.
Well, I always, Shavon, like to ask every guest, what was your first introduction to this book? Can you share that story can you share that story with us, please?
I absolutely can. Well, I'm happy to say that I just completed one of the 10-week challenges of Think and Grow Rich Mastermind group led by Miss Ann. And I was brought into the group by Dr. Lethea Owens, who has been a dear friend and mentor to me for a few years. And she invited me into the group. And I have to say that when the book was introduced to me, I knew it was already a big deal. But I always had the misperception that this book wouldn't apply to me. And it's not because I was afraid of riches, but I just didn't spend the time to dig to say, is this the right fit for me? But because it was introduced to me through the group and really learning what's entailed in the book, I love what Peter said about it's not just about being rich by monetary value, but it's the richness of life. And so that is what drew me in because I'm like, hey, I want to make sure every aspect of my life, whether it's my relationships, whether it's my own personal development, is truly fueled in wealth. Because at the end of reaching great wealth and all these material things, I want to make sure I showed up and that I show up in who I am and who God created me to be. So I have to thank you, Anne, for introducing this book.
Thank you. Well, I do have a follow-up question, Peter. Can you share with us one takeaway in terms of a positive impact as relates to organized planning that this book has had
Yeah.
in your business and or your life?
And it would certainly be the push that I needed and reminding me that it's okay for the plan not to be perfect. I think in many cases, people who are looking to achieve greatness and they have this passion that life is going to hit, life is going to happen. And sometimes you have to be reminded that it's okay to alter, to modify the plan because you need to adjust it to your life or maybe certain things didn't work out. But I certainly took away from the book the value of having a group of supportive people, the mastermind, the power of persistence, and the power of just checking yourself, being honest to say, listen, I need to do some work right there. You know, knowing where your own personal gaps and struggles are is so essential to being successful in any aspect of life to me. And you have to be a person who's open-minded and a person who's willing to take constructive criticism in order to really apply the principles in here. Because if you can't listen and observe yourself, you'll miss so much.
Thank you.
Good stuff there, and great questions. Louise, I'm going to jump over to you there, sir, as we dive into this organized planning topic with their Shavon.
I love it. No, it's fantastic. And it's so true, right? How once we read the book once, by the third or fourth time, it is a completely different book, right? Our understanding of the book and the principles is so different. I'm gonna change a little bit without going to off too much. Siobhan, what made you become a life coach?
That's such a beautiful question. Thank you for even caring to ask that question, Louise. It's part personal and it's also part realizing an innate gift. The personal part is that I initially thought I was going to expand my career from communications into psychology. So I took a master's coursework in psychology. I thought I wanted to be a therapist, psychologist, etc. And it stemmed from later in life finding out that my mother was bipolar.
Mm.
And it made a lot of sense to me, like, oh, this is why we went through this growing up. This is why. And I felt the need to try to help her. And I'm like, well, how can I help her without really understanding what this is from the educational standpoint? So I took master coursework in psychology, Louise, and later discovered life happened, marriage, child, and then I took a break and then I realized I didn't want to go back, but I also recognized that I had a gift. And I wanted to be able to empower people from difficult odds in life. I knew that people often reached out to me for various reasons, usually in the areas of personal development and overcoming challenges. And so that's when I started to really learn about the field of, life coaching and how do I make that a serious path for me or an addition to my background and my strengths. And so that's when I decided to get a certification as a life coach, because I think it's so important that as we go to doctors and we go to therapists for other things, that the areas of personal development and how you build relationships and areas of confidence and knowing purpose, all those things are just as significant to nurture and expand upon in your own life. So I just believe in having a connection with people. And so I thought the life coach role would allow me to apply my gifts, all while helping people to discover and use their own gifts.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go back to you, Peter.
Good stuff. Yeah, thank you so much there, Louise. Siobhan, let's go back to this organized planning
Yeah.
thing, if I could. Your life sounds very robust, for lack of a better word. And I'm sure that organized planning occurs in so many different ways, whether again it's professionally, personally for the family, maybe just in life in general. what are some small ways that you inject this? You mentioned journaling already, but if we can go even a little bit deeper, maybe even for the business perspective, your career perspective, we sometimes plan, the plans don't occur as they don't, the outcomes don't come about as we were planning. What does the shift look like for you as a result of that? You mentioned 2008 as an example, so that was loaded, of course, but feel free to take it away as you see fit.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. Shifts are going to happen in all of our lives, and sometimes shifts happen because things are out of our control,
Mhm.
and sometimes shifts happen because we've made certain decisions. And for me, certainly 2008 was a big shift because I was used to being an entrepreneur even at a very young age. Um, and I went back into working into the public sector, the nonprofit sector, but I always had my business on the side because
Mhm.
it's what I love. But what I can tell you about shifts is that I was really challenged by the thought that I failed when we decided to dissolve the first business, the idea was that I had failed. But later in life, as I started to develop and pursue a new plan for myself, I realized that all the gifts and talents that I had in this particular business, a lot of that was able to translate and help me grow in the other
Mhm.
areas. So failure is not really failure when you're able to take what you've learned and apply it to something new. Because each and every one of us are going to grow or we're going to develop. In order to grow and develop, you have to be able to position yourself to be empowered, to add, to recognize the struggles. And so that was a big shift during that time. And the most recent shift that I've had, Peter, if I can share, is
Yeah.
that my company ended up dissolving in 2023,
Mhm.
dissolving the communication side of our business and making a decision. And that's huge in organized planning. It's huge in the book of Think and Grow Rich, is being able to make decisions, but decided that we would focus more specifically on the personal and professional development side. And then that shift, although the communication side made most of my money, there was a sacrifice that took place in shifting to where I knew I wanted to be.
Mhm.
So, and Think and Grow Rich came at a perfect time when I am in the middle of a shift. I am in the middle of developing a new concept, a new plan, and making sure I can execute it. So the book was really helpful in doing that. But shifts are actually beautiful. It means that it's time for you to grow. And sometimes you just have to accept that. They're not comfortable, but they're powerful.
Wow, so much stuff there, Shavon. I first thought of the failure word. Actually, first shift. You mentioned shift a couple of times. Then I heard failure word, and all these resonate with someone who's listening today. But then I also heard I want to stay here. You let go of what seemingly was a passion, communications, and shifted somewhere else. How was that shift from a emotional feelings perspective when you kind of let go of your bread and butter to shift to something else that was a desire of yours? Talk to us about that because again, I know someone has gone through it or is about to go through it and may benefit them in some form or fashion.
Yeah, thank you for thinking about the audience, Peter. And I hearing that question and reflecting, it's very emotional because there are places in your life where you built something,
Mm,
whether that is a marriage or whether that is a business or
mm,
whether it's a corporate career, and you realize there needs to be a change in order to get where you ultimately want to be. There is a grieving process.
mm,
There is a moment where you have to say goodbye to things that, they are very difficult goodbyes. And what I didn't say also, Peter, is that in my personal life, I was having a lot of health challenges during this time. So it was a little bit of a forced push to say, you got to focus on your health. You've got to focus on these other things that are impacting these symptoms that you're having. And so what might be causing this level of stress? And so because I couldn't fully deliver, I was planning on dissolving the communication side either way, but it was almost like I was pushed into, okay, something has to happen. And so in doing that, I remember reaching out to clients and writing them individual customized letters to say, we're going to be dissolving this part of our business. And so we're going into this. And so here are the transition steps and goals and thanking them, et cetera. So there is a grieving process because you're letting go of something that you've built. Most people, when they see me, they're like, oh, Shavon, communications and media, or in front of the camera or speaking. And I'm letting them know that's not the full title of what I do now. It's still a gift, and I can take it and apply it to what I'm doing now, but it's not my focus. And so I think while you're grieving what you're letting go, you also have to prepare yourself for people who are having a hard time accepting your own change. Because not everyone can accept that you've decided to do something that's good for you. Because what I know, even just with scripture says your gifts would make room for you. And what I was learning is that I felt as if my gifts and communication weren't making the level of room that I needed in the areas of personal and professional development coaching that I wanted to see. So I had to make a decision. It was very hard, but it's a decision that I made. It's a big sacrifice. And so there's a part of me that feels like, man, I'm 45 years old and I'm building this side of the business when I've done all of this, so there's a lot, but I'm so grateful to be where I am now. There is a beautiful peace that I have. There's a confidence in the direction that I'm going. I can see and I can feel the vision. And as part of organized planning, one of the biggest things that comes out of that chapter also is the persistence part. So right now I'm at a place where it's persistence and I'm practicing it. And I'm making sure that I'm not just applying it, but I'm tracking it. I'm applying it and I'm tracking it. Is it working? Get up in the morning. Hey, if you struggle with persistent, how am I really dedicated to this every single day of my life? So I hope I answered your question, Peter. I feel like
You
I
did.
danced a little bit on that question,
Actually,
but
you did plus so much more. And Doretha said in the chat, sometimes we shift because of the many things that life throws at us. And I will say this to piggyback on what you just said before we go to Ann is life is going to throw stuff at us. And we have to make some decisions. We have choices when that happens. We have to choose and make decisions based on what we need, what our family needs, what's important to us. It sounds like you've been able to do that. And listen, thank you for being transparent because it can be painful a little bit, but that's part of the journey as well. Ann McNeil, this is deep, Ann.
Wow, I am sitting here resonating with all of it, Siobhan. Thank you so much. I want to go back to the beginning of the principle when Napoleon Hill shares with us that when you decide to have a desire, uh, and it's time to organize your plans, that one of the first things you really should consider doing is either forming or connecting with the mastermind group of accountability, right? And so, can you share with us an example of how your mastermind group may have helped you in vetting some of the plans that you have as relates to organized planning to hit your desire?
yeah. Thank you, Ann. The first part for me specific to the Think and Grow Rich Mastermind group, um, I think showing up and recognizing that you're not alone was a huge thing for me. And while I have and been comfortable functioning alone for a long time, I think this new phase in my life does not want that same mentality or that same behavior. I want to be able to connect with people who have similar passions, who are like-minded. And certainly the mastermind group helped to do just that. Also hearing other individuals' ideas and some of the challenges that they've experienced and how they overcame those challenges. But certainly I think out of the mastermind group, the accountability partner piece is huge. So especially who you team up with, it's like another layer, a sub layer of the main mastermind, but making sure that you find and you have the right people who can push you, who can recognize gaps, recognize areas of development, and encourage you towards it versus, beating you down, because why? They also want to grow as well. So there's an exchange there and there's a push. So I would recommend anyone to find time to invest your gifts your talents into getting into a joined group of like-minded individuals. It's really empowering. So, and did I answer your question okay? I can
Absolutely.
expound too, so I gained a lot.
Yes, not only did you answer it, I think you gave the audience a real life example of the benefit and power of vetting your plans with the Mastermind Group of Accountability. And so, as a part of the International Mastermind Association, we are focused on helping people understand the benefit and value of having a mastermind group. And this particular principle and example that you gave, I think, is an excellent example to show if you plan to have plans to achieve your desire, how do you vet your plans? And so, yes, 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 you did. And you also hit on the perfect harmony.
Yes.
And right, and the give and take. So thank you. Thank you. Peter, back to you.
Good stuff, Louise. I'm gonna come over to you. There's sort of such rich topics here that we're pulling out of organized planning that are real life, real world. What are some of the thoughts or questions that you might have, my friend?
Yeah, it's so much, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
your head is like, thank you, Shavon, because you're bringing so much to the table and the things that we can dissect and be here for 3, 4 hours easily with all this experience that you're bringing to the table. When you said something earlier about how we once we have the organized planning, um, how not to give up, right? You talk about persistence, but when you have a mastermind group, one of the principles is working two different minds working in harmony,
Mhm.
right? I want you to touch on that. How can you shed light on that moment when I am recognizing this is not the right person in the group?
Yeah.
This is maybe me. My attitude is I'm not bringing the best to the table because whatever, I had a fight at home with whatever, or things are not going great. How can we keep that harmony into this mastermind so we can, the organized planning can move forward, right? Because sometimes the planning doesn't go forward because the attitude of a certain individual or the lack of work, or that this person is not bringing what they said that we're going to bring to the table.
Yeah. I have so much to add on this one. I'm almost nervous. I'm going to talk for an hour. The first thing that I think about, Luis, is open communications. Now, open communications doesn't mean that you always have to be brutally honest. That is sometimes the wrong phrase to use. I think you can be honest without being brutal. And so to show up where there's harmony, I think you have to avoid people having assumptions. So what do I mean by that? If I know that I'm really having a bad day and my energy is off, I am probably going to give warning to either the leader of the group or to the group as a whole, so that when I show up and they're like, well, why is she not talking today? Is she having attitude or why? I'm going to already cancel all of that. Because as a partner and we've agreed to show up and be here for each other, that's not just in your insight. It's not just in your education. It's in the energy and the spirit that you bring to the table. So I am accountable for all the things that maybe you didn't see that's happening in my life. And I show up and I'm not participating, or I'm like this, or maybe I'm emotional. I don't want to disrupt the objective of the group because I have my personal issues. I think it's a selfless act when you're able to simply say, hey, you all, I want to show up. I'm going to be there. I may not be on camera, but I just have some things going on, but I definitely want to be there. It's as simple as that, to let people know that you just have things going on. You don't have to, lay out your whole life or what you're going through, but at least you are accountable for the emotional and the energy state of the group. That to me is the basis of anything, is you're removing assumptions, because people have them. We're human. You assume the worst and nobody ain't thinking about you. You mad because you thought they meant it this way. No, they're in their own thing and they may not always mean to. So I think open communication is the one of the top things that I would certainly say, Luis.
Thank you so much. That is so true, so true. And the base for so many other things, right? In
Yeah.
our life, we
Yeah.
have an open communication with ourselves first, and then to the world. Yeah, I love how I like how you bring it to the topic, like being real and honest with yourself first.
Yeah,
And
and I think also expressing your intention. So I was recently at a mastermind earlier this year with Dr. Owens, and there was a group of women there. We were in Dubai, just happened to be all women. And you already know the people that you connect with a little bit more than the others, right? And but you try to be, fluid in building relationship with everyone. But there were certainly a couple of people that in leaving there, I knew that we would probably maintain a relationship. And so there was one particular person that, we certainly were really adamant about scheduling time and meeting up and just talking afterwards. And so we did that. And so we got to know each other a little bit more. And towards the end of the introduction, I literally said, I said, so what is your intention or what would you like to have for this relationship? And I think she just kind of looked at me, but she was like, okay, well, I was thinking this. She shared what she thought, and I shared what I thought. And I said, well, with relationships, so that I tend to be intentional and I like to understand what people want to gain or how they want to benefit from it or what do you see. And so we both shared what we would like. And we said, well, maybe we check in every 2 months or, if we have products coming out, we have ideas that we can share and give feedback to each other. So we established from the beginning what our expectations were. We also established what we're working through. Like, for instance, my working through was staying consistent. Hey, I need you to help me. Hey, did you do? Keep going back, don't give up. So we expressed what our challenges were and we expressed what our strengths were and how we could support each other.
Love that, Shavon. And this communication is so, so important. I love how you started out that response to Louise about showing up at work and you are not your best self,
Yeah.
but communicating that with others proactively. We don't do that normally as human beings. Maybe we're not self-aware enough. Maybe we're not planning enough, but we don't do that. And maybe part of the reasons also is that we don't feel that we need to show or we need to share that level of ourselves with others. A whole lot of stuff there for sure. I just wanted to kind of just communicate that. But before you even go into that, we have a question from Lynn Whitfield in the chat. Lynn says, I'm a person who resists routine. So, Siobhan, how does Lynn engage or how should she engage in organized planning while not making what she's doing into a boring routine? What comes to mind for you?
Yeah, that's great. Lynn, thank you. I think a big part of that is taking the step to be clear on what your priorities are. Why? Because if you have, let's say you have 10 priorities, then it's going to be more difficult to have a consistent or to avoid a routine. But if Lynn has a lifestyle where she knows and she's confirmed that she has two key priorities in her life, then it's not as difficult or it's not as intense to have a routine life. So maybe the routine is simplified because you've identified what your priorities are and what you will and what not do, will and what will not do. So there's freedom. And it sounds like she's at a place in her life where, she wants to avoid this monotonous, this boring kind of, flow of life. And she just wants to wake up and say, this is what I want to do today and not have a plan. And I think that's a beautiful place of freedom. So I don't think it's wrong that she wants to avoid a routine, but it's also the question is, does she have a long-term goal or immediate goals that she's trying to reach? And if not having a routine prevents you from seeing progress towards that goal, then you might have to be a little bit uncomfortable to set a routine and to set a practice that works for you. And I think it's exploring what that is. So some people don't know what works for them. So it takes time too. I hope that helps, Lan. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff there. Ann McNeil has her hand raised. There's Shavon. So it must be serious, of course. So, Anne, yes.
I'm jumping up and down. Shavon, listen, you know, things don't always go as planned,
Yeah.
right? They don't always go as planned. When you have organized planning and you just, you're going along and it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
then you reset and it doesn't work. And then you reset and it doesn't work. Can you share with our audience an example of when this has happened to you as a part of your organized planning and what you did so that as a coach, coaching now a large group of individuals who are listening
Mhm.
all over the world, right?
Yeah.
What would you suggest an individual could do when faced with a situation like that?
Yeah, I think for myself, my plan has changed because there's been time my vision has changed. So I think a very good first step is to be clear on your vision. And what is that? What is that for your life? Um, and when I have seen things to either come to a halt, life happens, and I'm having to do things over and over again, or I feel like I'm doing things over and over again, I think it's really being honest with yourself. And I think all the elements in organized planning are elements that could help you align to what are the gaps. There's a gap. And there's a reality about yourself that you may have to face that you're not going to want to hear. And I think for myself, I know that I have questioned, well, why haven't I made it to here? Or I see other people doing this and I know that I'm great. And why haven't I done that? I had in one of my masterminds, which is a one-on-one mastermind, I call it. One of the things that my dear friend said to me, and she said, you're brilliant and you have great stuff. She said, but you don't promote enough. You don't do enough to push. And I had to just sit back and be like, I don't. I really don't. You can have ideas all day. You can have a plan all day. But if you don't have a strategy to execute and you don't have a level of desire that no matter what happens in life, you're going to still stay consistent. You're going to still believe in it. And then sometimes you got to ask yourself, is it that you do or don't believe in the plan, or you do and don't believe in yourself? Those are two different questions to ask that you should answer for yourself. And I think there was certainly a mix of both for myself. And I think more leaning towards the idea that maybe there's elements about myself that I don't believe in. And that was hard for me because listen, I'm certified as a confidence coach. I should know this stuff. I know confidence. But in every level of our lives, there will always be a new stage of confidence. There's going to be a higher level of faith. There's going to be a higher level of challenges. And so if you're feeling like you're repeatedly getting stopped and stopped and stopped, then I would revisit your vision. Make sure you're clear on that. And then ask yourself, am I confident that I can achieve this vision? And if the answer is no, don't feel bad. It's just now I need to have a goal of saying, how do I work on my confidence? Do I need to go to workshops? Do I need to work on things internally? Are there things from my past that my daddy said to me that's blocking me from thinking that I can achieve it? There's a lot of introspection that has to go on in order to get there. And so who's around you? Do you just have friends around you who think everything's great? Or do you have friends around you saying, no, I think you could step it up? That's wonderful. But I think you're missing this. Revisit it. Does it mean they're always right? No. But can you receive the feedback that might help you question yourself to say, how can I improve this and in what way? And when I was in my mastermind and she was just straight out, she was like, you don't promote enough. You don't do enough there. And she's right. I've created so many programs and ideas and events and books and I'll just create it and I'm on to the next. Without nurturing it, without spending time with it. It's just like you don't have a baby and you just drop it because you have a baby. Your baby needs to be studied. You need to hear and understand the different type of cries that your baby has. You need to know when it's time to feed it. You need to know when it's, so there's a lot of time that you spend really nurturing this gift. And if you really believe in it, you love it, and you know it's destined to grow and be successful, you got to lock in. And sometimes you're going to hear things you don't want to hear, and it doesn't feel good. But in the long run, it will stretch you. It will make you stronger.
Peter, I have to say this. Only those of you on Zoom can see my face as I'm laughing so hard because you are just all over my toes. But I'm going to turn this back over to Peter. I just had to say that because we just got started. For
Mm.
those of you that just joined us, we're talking to the wonderful, 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 wonderful Miss Shavon Reed-Agard, and just opening up a can of worms. But teaching us how to put those worms back in the can, put the
Yeah.
lid on it, and seal it as relates to your organized plan. So thank you so very much for that response. And that's for those of us who know when our plans don't work, especially being able to take the feedback from your mastermind group. When your plans don't work, don't quit. Just
Mm.
persist. And when you step into the confidence, the self-confidence, I put it in the chat because we all know I write that self-confidence formula every single day, 7 days a week now for years. But thank you so much for that. Peter, going back to you, I know we have to talk about the annual meeting, and I don't know where the time went, but we do have questions and comments in the chat. Also, thank you also those of you that joined us in the Zoom live. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, if I could piggyback on something that Siobhan has said, many of us, a lot of us, have doubt inside of us that we don't even realize exists from childhood, from upbringing, from trauma, from past. And the value of this mastermind that Siobhan has spoken about is it's easier for people to see the the limitations in others than we can see it in ourselves. So the mastermind allows others to help us out, get to that next level, overcome those challenges. But you have to be able to have that thick skin that Siobhan has identified there too, right? To be able to digest that and apply it moving forward. And many of us, again, are hesitant about hearing that, leaning into that, feeling that, because we don't know what we don't know. And sometimes we just don't want to know, unfortunately. And we have this annual meeting every single year in January. But this is a microcosm of what Siobhan has mentioned, the ability to bring your life in writing and get that feedback. Can you talk a little bit about it, please?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I want to also just mention, if I may, one of the comments in the chat, I think it's from Wyman, said, "Don't quit, just persist." And when I think about the annual meeting, we have been doing this annual meeting now for over 15 years, and it is a place of accountability. And for those of us who are in a mastermind group, or thinking about being in a mastermind group, or don't have any idea what a mastermind is, I would encourage you to join us January 9th and 10th, 2026, and find out how to hit your desire, your dreams, your goals. What is it that you're desiring that's also desiring you? And how do you be held accountable? We talk about organized planning. This is one of the ways I believe, Peter and everybody, that we can have as a tool, if you will, in our toolbox to organize the plans for your small mastermind group. And Siobhan, you hit the nail on the head when you said you have a mastermind group where it's just two of you. And then you're in a mastermind group where there are many. The International Mastermind Association created this event. It's not a conference. And we can pull it back up again, Peter. It's not a conference, it's a meeting for your life, but every single area of your life. We ask you to bring your life in writing and be willing to be held accountable by the group. So there's no keynote speakers, there's no workshop bags, there's, none of those things. It's just you sitting at a table with a couple of individuals, walking through your goals that you've set for your life in 10 areas of your life. I don't need to go through all those 10 areas, but I just want to encourage every single one of us. Be mindful that your plans must be vetted and you really want to be held accountable by a larger group. This is that larger group. And I love this photo. So as I asked Peter to put it back up, but January 9th and 10th, we will be at the Embassy Suites in Boca Raton, and you can go to internationalmasterminders.com and you can register there. I cannot say enough about how important this is. And I'll just share one quick story, if I may. 2 weeks ago, I'm sitting at breakfast with my granddaughter, and she says to me, we're going over her goals that she set. She wanted to read 300 books for this year, which meant that she needed to read 20, 25 books a month. So we got the books from the library, and she read an entire series of diary books by this African American female. I can't think of her name that wrote the books. And then she says to me at breakfast, "Oh, I want to write my biography." This is her goal. I said, "No, I don't think," I said, "Look at her, what's a biography?" Then she looked it up. She said, "No, I want to write my autobiography." And because of being a 8-year-old masterminding since coming to the meeting since 3 years old, she has been writing every day with the goal of having her book finished by the time we go to the National Speakers Association conference in July. Met with the publisher, and she's about 10 pages before finishing. My point is this: who's holding all of us accountable? She's in a small group of masterminding with children that meet every Sunday, and they're setting their goals. So I just want to share every single area of our lives, and all of our friends and family members can benefit from attending this annual meeting. Internationalmasterminders.com. Thank you, Peter.
Good stuff. Thank you so much there, Ann. Hey, folks, if you're listening, if you're watching, we're going to go over a few minutes, just by a few minutes, because this has been such a rich conversation. But we're going to go around the room and get a little bit of our ahas and how we can stay in touch with everyone here for sure. Louise, we haven't heard from you in a minute. Louise, this has been extraordinary, this conversation
Yes,
today.
yes, very deep as well. So many things to. I think like we just which one we're just kind of like going through over the surface of gray stuff. So I really want her to come back. I don't know about you guys, but I really would love her to come back so we can continue. And imagine if it's this, for many people, this is the most boring principle, right? Because it takes time, you need to plan and all that. That's my consensus of people. Like, this is my least favorite principle, but because of that, it's one of the most important ones. Because one of the things that I was reflecting when she was talking on the last point, on the other side, when you have the confidence, right? Like we have the confidence. When people is telling you you're crazy, that's too hard, you're gonna you are risking so much. What if you don't make it, right? But deep inside, you know you're on the right track. I was just thinking about that kind of stuff. So, um, yeah. So, well, my name is Luis Jimenez. I'm a certified coach with the Napoleon Hill Institute. You can find me in Luis Jimenez with the J, Luis Jimenez coaching.com. And Shavon, this has been very insightful. I love how you brought communication, open communication, how being vulnerable. And you know what? I don't feel great today for whatever reason. Uh, this is I'm not bringing my A game today to the table, but if you give me an hour, if you give me 30 minutes, I can reset, help me. And because that is also true, right? So we love to help our people. When we see somebody down, that is kind of the things that I've seen our community of personal development. We bring people up. But what happens when we're down? Right? We don't communicate that. You were very insightful with that. So that's one of the things. You know what? Right now I don't feel that great. Give me 10 minutes and I'll be right back, right? And create our own ways to bring ourselves up. Stay in that vibration. So thank you for that. That was very insightful for me. Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Ann McNeil, thank you so much there, Louise. Ann McNeil, your ahas, plus how do we stay in touch with Ann McNeil?
Well, AnnMcNeil.com, but of course, I want to be accountable. And Shavon, you were all on my toes, like Lynn Whitfield said about that, not marketing enough. So let me do my marketing for today. If you're interested in having a desire fulfilled, you really want to start with the mastermind group. And if you are looking to have a successful mastermind group, you can get this book, How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group. And I am so excited and I'm blessed, Shavon, to have you be a part of my masterminding as a part of the National Speakers Association. And I really want to uh, thank you also for helping us, and Lewis said it so well, for helping us all understand what happens when your plans don't work. And you really started going down that line. Actually, we could do a whole show of that, right? What happens when the plans don't work? But you reset, but the confidence, and like Doretha said in the chat, because she and I are in the same mastermind group, and I know Lynn does this also daily, but writing that self-confidence formula, but understanding that there are many ways to grow your self-confidence. But if your plans are not working, and you said it well, check yourself. Check yourself. And so that was my big, 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 big aha. But again, annmcneil.com. We are having a clarity mastermind this Tuesday. And if you're interested, you can go to my website and get the details there. Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff there for sure. Shavon, such a rich conversation today. How do we stay in touch with you as you move forward, so that we can continue to be inspired?
Yes, yes, of course. Certainly Shavon Reed. And my website is echolove.com. Love is spelled L-U-V. So it's ECHOLUV.com. And I also have a second website that's going to be updated, and that is called Meet Shavon. So Meet, Shavon. And Peter, while you're there, if you click on events, I'll talk real quick about what's happening right now. So if anyone wants to participate in what I call, it is actually part of Think and Grow Rich, but where are you serving? And right now we're in a 8-week challenge. It's a personal development challenge through my book called Heart Open. It is a self-discovery process where there's like over 50 something questions, personal development questions, life coaching questions to help you journal and plan your life, your vision, do some introspection. But we're in week 2. Week 3 will be next week. So if you want to join on that, there's no cost, there's no fee. If you decide to get the book, you can, but all the information is there under events if you'd like to participate. There's a open Facebook group, and we're all just chatting about what some of the questions are. You'll see me show up with videos, and I'm coaching through some of those questions. So if you want to just follow along, you certainly can. And then my website information.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Loving it. Siobhan, to piggyback on Louise, we have to have you back for sure. And because this has been such a layered conversation. We just kept pulling back the layers. And it was really beneficial. We started off with organized planning, but it went so many different ways and then came back to organized planning. So thank you so much for that. That's been one of the biggest ahas for me, has been a couple of words that you've said. The shift word was a big one. The failure word was a big one. Even the journaling. I need to do better with setting a routine at night to reflect, but also to plan for the next day. So just lots of different stuff that has risen to the surface. And thank you so much for even being so transparent and open today, as you have shared. So, hey folks, this has been another edition of Think and Grow Rich Live. My name is Dr. Peter A. James. I'm excited that we were able to have Shavon here today to dive on into this conversation and really understand a little bit about her, but understand about this organized planning a little bit more. Thank you so much for being here today. Next week, same time, same channel. We're diving back into Think and Grow Rich. We have a new principle next week because we're starting a new month. So stay tuned, stay in the book, and continue to think and grow rich. Thank you so much, folks, and we look forward to having you again next week, same time, same channel. Take care.